Hi, this is Asim.
This is Sujoy.
This is Amrita.
And you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast about the three main Khans of the Hindi film industry.
Amir,
Salman,
And Shara.
Hi, you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast regular feed. Thank you so much for your support over the years. We now have a Patreon channel with bonus content and exclusive merch for those of you who would like to support us. Every dollar goes towards creating more and better content. Visit us at patreon.com/Khandaan podcast.
Hi and welcome to a new episode of Khandaan Podcast. My name is Asim Bernie and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, although they are far, Amrita and Sujoy.
I'm Aspas, but not as far as Amrita. Hi.
Hi Sujoy. Hi Asim.
So this week we are doing a Patreon pick. We're doing a listener pick. So if you are what is it called? The tiers, a tier member of the $20 tier, then you can choose a movie. And this month we chose, and we try to do this every month, although we've not been very consistent about it. But we picked Lena's pick, which is Disco Dancer. So that's going to be our review for an episode for this week. Guys, how long has it been since you saw Disco Dancer in its entirety?
Oh, I don't think I have ever watched it in its entirety before.
Really?
I was just thinking about that today because I ran into one of our listeners when I was out and about earlier this morning.
Wait, again?
And
Again?
because yes, Amrita ke saath hi hota hai. That's the thing that only Amrita encounters on a daily basis. Not me and Asim.
and I was telling her that we were doing Disco Dancer, and she was like, "Oh, I love that film." And I was like, "You do?" And she was like, "Yeah, I just watched it in its entirety a year or so ago, and I fell in love with it." And I was like, I don't remember the last time that I watched it in its entirety. I know that I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I cannot remember ever sitting down and watching the whole thing. When was the last time you guys watched it in its entirety?
As a kid on Doordarshan, I think.
I have watched that movie a lot. As a kid, it is rewatching it, but literally it's been probably 35 years since I've seen this movie, that long.
Yeah.
I saw it in the 80s. That's what I'm talking about, right? But when back in the 80s, I watched this movie a lot. Clearly, I knew way more of the story than I remembered. And it's also that thing where you watch something and you realize that you watched it as a kid. Because structurally it makes no sense, but watching it as a kid, it totally makes sense, and now you're like, wait a minute, what's happening here?
So let's put it this way. For me, this is the first time I'm watching Disco Dancer in color because I remember watching it in black and white TV.
I mean, yeah. The story thing is something that also occurred to me, Asim, because I just kept it just went from one thing to another. Even the way it starts off, I had completely forgotten that Rajesh Khanna was in this movie. And then all of a sudden is Rajesh Khanna singing na goron ki na kalon ki. And I was like, wait, I know this song. Yeah. I actually had that feeling with multiple songs in this movie that I just completely forgotten that it came from this movie. Yeah. What a banger of a soundtrack.
Amazing,
we're going to talk about that later. Yeah. And why? Oh my God, there's so many things to say.
Yeah. I want to start off with one thing though, because this happened when the last time we did the listener pick, and we are deeply cynical people in very cynical times, and I've noticed not our audience necessarily isn't, they're not as cynical as we are. And I don't want this to be, they pick a movie and we just shit on it. That's not what I want these kind of episodes to be. So I really wanted to go in it with an open heart and also adjust my, critical mind a little bit, because this is a movie of an entirely different era. And also entirely different
and
goals.
A totally different era of filmmaking altogether, when Bollywood was sort of churning out movies rather than creatively making movies. This was very much like a paycheck movie,
Well,
or maybe they didn't think so.
no, like this was written by Rahi Masoom Raza. Like, did you know that? Like, I didn't know that.
Who is that?
He's like one of the most famous writers in like like Indian vernacular literature, and like he wrote like books, he wrote poems, and apparently he wrote Disco Dancer as well.
The range.
And I don't know who the director is. I don't think like I've ever heard of that director's name before.
So it's directed by a guy called Babbar Subhash, and he also made Dance Dance and Tarzan.
So
Again, range.
yeah, I was like, he's definitely pinpointed a genre, right? Like the kind of movie he's like committing to. So for people that don't know, Disco Dancer is a 1982 Indian dance movie. This is from Wikipedia. It stars Mithun Chakraborty, Kim in leading roles, and I honestly for a moment I was like, is it Kimi Katkar? And that was her first name, and I was like, no, it's not, unfortunately. With Om Puri, a super young baby Om Puri, Karan Razdan and Rajesh Khanna in a friendly appearance. And the film tells this rags to riches story of a young street performer from the slums of Bombay. Very short. I think the main point is this movie, the disco soundtrack was composed by Bappi Lahiri. And I think that's kind of the two main words is Mithun.
Let's make a movie around the soundtrack.
So one of the things that I realized while I was watching this movie, and this is going back to what Asim was saying about like watching this movie with an open heart, rather than trying to like, just shit on it. I had forgotten that for an entire generation, Mithun was basically India's answer to the Jackson 5. Like, I remember that, that he was like, everyone talks about Mithun Das dancing, etc. But I'd forgotten that Mithun was beautiful. Like, when he first, came on screen, like, people were crazy about
He's
him.
so pretty in this movie. I was watching it, I was like,
so
oh my
pretty.
God.
Yeah. And I like Agnipath really did a number on Mithun and his career. And then later on, like, the parody that he descended into of himself. But I think Agnipath is where everything started to just go downhill for him. Like that awful performance just like sort of killed everything. In this movie, even though he is in these really terrible scenes saying all kinds of weird dialogue, you see why this man won a national award at like, a very young age. He's an amazing actor as well as an amazing dancer, and he looks beautiful. Like everything is on fire in this film. Like no wonder it was like such a big, cultural reset when it came out.
And weirdly, when I was watching it, it made me really think of movies like from, the exploitation era, or even like Rocky. Like the first Rocky, that's what it almost made me think about, like a very scrappy kind of movie making, and really knows what it wants to do. And like what Sujoy is trying to say, like it's not necessarily intellectual or like a paycheck movie, but I think that's what it is. It's like a very scrappy exploitation kind of movie, one idea, and then they expand around it.
Yeah.
But the star power is undeniable. I was watching a little kind of biography video about Mithun, and the thing is that, and we forget about this maybe, that Mithun kind of came up in the era where also Amitabh was taking kind of a break, and he was getting into politics a little more, and that gave space for new stars to kind of emerge, and Mithun was one of those. So again, this is based on the video I watched. I haven't fact checked this at all, but it seems to make sense in the chronology of things. And I also remember that this is also when Amitabh got injured, right? And he was also out of commission for a long time then. So there was these moments where other actors could kind of come in, and Mithun was one of them.
But also
Yeah.
coming back to the influence of, this was India's answer to Jackson 5. I think also it's also an Indian answer to Saturday Night Fever, right? That whole scene of him getting discovered,
Yeah.
him just walking on a dark, lonely street, and this while the Ompuri appears trying to recruit him in Goa. But you see, like, who was dancing like this in that era? You would definitely
Yeah.
get awestruck. A larger than life Mithun Chakraborty on a big screen dancing his ass off like that.
I mean,
Nobody was moving the way he was.
if he wasn't there, there would not be Hrithik Roshan. There would not be Varun Dhawan. There would not be, Tiger Shroff. Like, he introduced dancing.
You see all these dance competitions of videos of Hrithik Roshan and Aditya Chopra facing off, and you see them moving like it.
Yeah.
Like Hrithik Roshan in that Rakesh Roshan movie from the 80s when he was just a little kid. He's moving like Mithun Chakraborty. That's his idol.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk quite a bit about star power and what it means on this podcast. And I think that particular scene, Sujoy, that you were talking about, where he is dancing on a pavement and there's barely any light. And all you can see is his silhouette. And
Yeah.
it's, by the way, like I watched this on YouTube. It was a terrible copy. I mean, I was just lucky that there was a copy to watch,
Yeah.
basically, of this movie. Like it has not been restored whatsoever. But even with that, even with the weirdness of that scene, which appears out of nowhere, there's zero context to like, why is Ompuri there? Why is Mithun
It
there?
looked really
Why
creepy.
is-
Like, Ompuri is like, are they even in the same place? I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but like Asim was basically recreating Ompuri's face in that particular scene, which is hilarious. And it's also like backlit by the weirdest streetlights in the universe.
Choices.
But
It looks like Om Puri was looking for some action on the streets of Bombay. That's what it looked like.
it really does. Like, it looks like it looks like a sex club basically, except like an open air sex club is just like weird. But
It's Goa, man, in the 80s. Who knows?
anything goes. But in spite of all of that, it just works because of Mithun. Like, like you can't get your eyes off him. And you're like, yeah, like if I saw wild Mithun on the streets of Goa, shaking that booty and like, just walking along the pavement, even I would be transfixed. Totally get it, And then there's like these weird scenes, So, okay, so the thing is like, it starts with this song called Bang Bang. It's Kalpana Iyer and Karan Razdan, who God love him, but he cannot dance. The man is like the worst dancer I have ever seen in my life. And the fact that, that he has to basically be a rival to Mithun is just, I mean, that's not even insult to injury. That's just like a whole other plane.
I was watching it and I was saying, is Karan Razdan the disco king or is Kalpana Iyer the disco queen? Because that's the one you need to bring down because she brings it.
Yeah.
And then basically, Ompuri is Karan Razdan's manager, and Karan Razdan's a brat, and they fight. And Ompuri's like, "You can take your job and shove it, and I'm just gonna find someone else and make them a star, and then bring you down." And that's how he discovers Mithun. So then he goes to Mithun's house and he tells Mithun, like, "Oh, like I saw you dancing, and I think you've got what it takes to be a star." So then you see like Mithun practicing to be a star. And you're like, why? It's like gospel, like disco gospel, which is not a genre that I have ever heard before, I don't think. But like Mithun's being, and also like Mithun's like calling out to Jesus, but he's also like super sexy in it. And I'm just like, I don't know how to feel about this. Like, what is happening? I don't know.
But then we switch religions later, right? The same song
Yes.
then gets retrofitted to Krishna, from Jesus to Krishna. Pseudo-secularism, maybe. Disco bringing it. But every time Ompuri introduces himself as David Brown.
What is that
I
about?
just cannot. I
Yeah,
just
it's so
cannot.
funny, so funny. The song is by Andy Thielman, and it's called Jesus, basically. And the other one that he was dancing on in the street is Supernature by Cyrone. So those are the two songs that were kind of used. And I gotta say, I listened to the original. Like Bappi Lahiri knew what he was copying. Like he had some high level, good sounding disco songs on his whatever cassette LP that he had. Like
Koi Yahan Nache is copied from
Video Killed the
Radio
Radio Star.
Star, right? Yeah.
And there's another copy in there too, I think. We'll get back to it, I think, when we get into the movie a little bit more. But I want to also talk a bit about the cultural impact of this movie, right? Like, because how many of you got the flashback of us as 80s kids dancing and putting a performance in front of your parents when wholly inappropriate moves, clearly, when I was watching this? Like, there is so much air humping. There is so much air humping in very, very skin tight white pants, which is a whole level of bravery that I cannot understand.
But
everything is fair in disco, man.
But
everything
it was
is fair.
also really cute because when they were showing the concert scenes, and they show, like, you know, obviously there's all the women who are just going like, "Oh my God, Jimmy!" But also they show like little kids dancing. There's this one whole sequence where this little kid is like having the time of her life dancing to disco. And I was like, well, that was me. Like, I remember dancing to disco when I was a baby. Like, I thought it was great. And then of course there were like uncles who were like standing up and being like, yeah, like that also.
In one scene, Kim is like, "Daddy, आपको तो पता ही है मुझे डिस्को का कितना शौक है." Karan Johar copying that. कुछ होता है.
Yeah,
this is clearly an era where people were really into disco. And when you look at the timeline of disco was already finished. Like, disco was not a thing in 83 anymore. Even like when you think about Saturday Night Fever came at the end of disco. Like, it was already talking about a bygone era and people kind of in the the lower social strata that were still kind of living this dream of kind of finding their ways out. But it was already done. But it really catapulted, like, this disco movement to other countries. But the original disco movement was already kind of dead. So,
and then I think like Disco Dancer kind of brought it back into other countries who discovered disco through this movie, right?
And like Saturday Night Fever, like the Bee Gees soundtrack, and like even there's a lot of like amazing disco happening in Africa, Egypt. There are like some clear, amazing albums out there, influenced by much later than the disco movement in America.
So. And obviously, like Russia totally took it to another level with the whole Jimmy fandom and everything, right?
I found this clip. I'm going to try to post it. Is about, like, I think it's a very recent, like, Russia Got Talent or X Factor kind of show where there's literally a guy brown-faced as Mithun Chakraborty doing the entire routine. And, like with these disco songs, it has a big lead in before the lyrics start. It has like a minute of music and dancing. And he actually started singing in Hindi. And I was like blown away. Like, wow, like how much of an impact did this movie have?
I mean, the music is just incredible. I don't know if you want to talk. I think like I do want to talk about the music like first rather than keeping it for the end, because the music in this is basically like the MVP of the entire thing, right? Right from the start, like, where Rajesh Khanna comes on the screen. So the movie starts with Rajesh Khanna, who's like sort of like a foster father to young Mithun. And they're both like buskers, I guess. So Mithun isn't going to school. He's just busking with Rajesh Khanna. And Rajesh Khanna is playing like multiple instruments in that very Rajesh Khanna way. If you guys have seen his movies from the 70s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And he starts singing the song, Na Goron ki, na Kalon ki, ye duniya hai dil walon ki. which is a humongously famous song in Bollywood history. I don't think like kids today necessarily might know it, but like if you're from my generation or our generation or older, you have definitely heard that song.
It was weird for me because watching him, Rajesh Khanna, I feel like maybe how younger kids feel about maybe Salman Khan or somebody. Like, I just don't get how this man was such a big superstar. Like, I do not get it. Like, I don't understand how, and I think even people might not understand listening to Bollywood that came in later or something. Like, he was bigger than Amitabh, right? Like, it's like there was a Amitabh took.
It's kind of like Amitabh took the mantle from Rajesh Khanna. He became the successor of the superstar that Rajesh Khanna was.
Yeah. And I think already this song is probably the end of his career. Like, his superstardom had already finished. That's why he's doing these friendly appearances. And he's doing all of his movements. They make him die at the end, which I imagine was probably a big thing. Him dying was a thing, right? Like, that was one of those Rajesh Khanna things. And the dancing and the weird movements. And I don't understand any of it. I was like, wow, it's a cinematic language I do not understand, and I don't understand how this man was so big, but he was, right? And then basically he f***s off for like the entirety of the movie. Like he does Goro Ki Na Kanuki, and
and then suddenly his mom is ill and he's like, I need to go. But that is like one of the most unintentionally funny scenes of the movie because young Mithun comes home to his widowed mom, obviously, and says, ma, like, Raju Chacha went away to his gaon because his mother is ill. And he said, if you have any problems, just write to me and I will come. And then he's like, but he didn't give me his address. And his mom is like, that's okay. Like, I know his address. Like, he and your dad are from the same village. And I'm just like, yeah, sure.
It's the most retrofitted scene ever of writing. Like, the writing is, like, it's holding the nose like that.
But then, so then what happens is that, like, he's like, the young Mithun is like, well, but then how do I go busking if Raju Chacha isn't around? Like, I'm just a little kid. So his mom is like, well, I'll come with you. And you would think that that's a good thing that, an adult is accompanying a child on the streets, but it turns out like she's worse than not having any supervision.
There's no supervision. His mom has no supervision. I think she's chronically depressed. And B, she's definitely raising a psychopath. Like, she's like, "Main sabka kaat dunga." He's like, no, abhi nahi, baad mein. Like, there's no way where she's like actually,
She really escalates situations out of nowhere rather than, pacify it down.
But also, like, another thing that, like, I noticed this time around is that a lot of the love songs in this film are basically addressed to his mom. Like,
I did not know that Yaad Aa Rahi Hai was about a mom. Like, I did not understand, like, until I rewatched the movie. Wait, kiski yaad aa rahi hai?
Mummy ki.
Oh God, I did not see that coming at all.
I'm just thinking of, like, the millions of people who have sung that song in memory of their first loves or whatever, and then it's basically about this guy that's like singing about his mom, like yaad aa rahi hai,
I miss my mommy. Yeah.
But
Happy
also,
Mother's Day, everyone.
So the thing that, and then there's this whole like repeated motif of his mom like feeding Mithun with her own hands. And I just remembered randomly a long time ago when Beth from Beth Loves Bollywood, our top friend, watched this movie for the first time, and she was scandalized by that scene. She was like, why is this grown-ass man getting fed? That is terrible. And I just remember laughing a lot. But
newsflash, that happens in my household.
I was going to say it might also happen in my.
Of course, our two Raja Betas are right here.
Oh God! But it tastes better. Officially, the food tastes better if your mom gives it to you.
We can't deny it. We can't deny it.
Then the other song is okay. So then we go into Karan Razdan and Kalpana Iyer dancing to Bang Bang, like
Koi yahan nache nache.
Nache, yeah, Koi Yahan Nache Nache, which is
Awwa,
a
awwa.
banger. Banger.
So
like
good, so good. Like it is like that's the moment where all of my cynicism for the movie just floated out. Like when that song
Yeah.
started, Goro ki na Kalo ki, Rajesh Khanna, I was annoyed with it and all that stuff. But when this started, I was like, I'm on board. I was literally dancing. It was way too late, but the soundtrack is like everything of Disco Dancer came flashing back.
How good a soundtrack can be that it can completely convert you into a fan of this movie. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
Bappi Da, rest in peace. Oh my God, what a soundtrack.
then there is Jimmy's first performance, which is
A-O-E Zara Mudke. That's the song.
yeah.
I had completely forgotten this song.
Yeah, I completely forgotten that song too. And then there is I Am a Disco Dancer, which is like his song when he is a giant
no.
success.
Krishna Dharti Pe.
Can I get back
Oh,
to
yeah.
AOE first though? Because I think we're underselling that song because that is the song where the kind of the star Mithun comes up. Like that's where he because the whole setup is like Sam is supposed to lead this concert. David Brown says, I've bought the concert, so you're not going to be doing it. It's going to be my new star. And the public is against him. They're throwing shoes and whatnot. He takes the shoes and he started dancing. And with the air humping and the sandals in the hand, he just totally convinces the entire audience. And at the end of the song, there's like a 1 minute circle dance where everybody is dancing around Mithun, and Mithun is just like he's like hitting his cheeks and stuff like that with that little sly smile he does, and it just wins everybody over. Like I think it's a very important song because that's where the disco dancing actually comes in. So I really enjoy that song for sure.
A Star Is Born.
Yeah, A Star Is Born, basically.
Yeah. And he also converts an entire generation or multiple generations of women into his loyal army who are taking panga on his behalf and fighting for his honor. And then comes the Krishna song, right?
Yeah. It's hilarious to see fandom in that era, though. Like how we experience fandom now in the Twitter era and stans and stuff. It like the moment I saw that is offline stans.
What are those like?
But what are they? I feel they're much more respectful. Like there's less of an ownership of the star. Where there was these videos I was watching where Shah Rukh is coming out and a fan is just like forcing him to take a selfie, and he hits out the phone. And there was another from Akshay, and I was just saying that this would never have happened in the 80s to that level, right?
Yeah.
Like this sort of because you are a star that I'm a fan of, I own you. I own your time. I'm the one that has made you a star. And that entitlement just in disco dance is definitely not there. It's still very much putting on a pedestal. And who are these people even? Like he's a disco dancer, right? Like it's not like he's like, he's just basically a singer or a performer, but they've put him on such a high pedestal that the whole country, like even when he goes back to the slums, people just like he's that disco dancer. Like how do people in the slums even know a disco dancer? But clearly they do.
Oh yeah, so in the middle he goes back to the slum where he and his mom were treated badly, and then he ends up saving the slum.
Yeah,
like
basically,
I don't know. Like
the
this
slum is the same village that Shah Rukh was in when he lost the World
In
Cup
Bazigar.
hockey thing. It's the same place.
and then he sings "I'm a Disco Dancer," which it's like his star moment, and he is obviously like, I mean, that's a great song. Like, I am a disco dancer. Like, it's very simple and straightforward, and it's catchy AF.
Who was the genius that saw a mask and said, "Let's use it as a headband"? Like. it's so like such a small detail, but it is so iconic to see that mask like on his forehead. It's just like it like everything kind of put together just worked so well. I thought it's amazing.
So in the middle of all this, Karan Razdan is basically having, a meltdown because he's like, well, I was a star, then why is this guy a star? Why don't people love me anymore? And everyone's like, well, don't want to tell you this, but you're a dick. That's why.
I wrote down Karan Razdan is Daisy Jonesing about. Although Daisy Jones doesn't have talent, but she was very hard to manage. That's just...
And then Karan Razdan's dad basically sends Bob Christo to stop Mithun from doing what he does best, which is disco dance. But then later on to murder him. Kalpana Iyer tips off Mithun's mom, who goes and takes the fall for Mithun. And then Mithun develops a guitar phobia. Which in turn leads to what, in my opinion, is one of the best scenes I have ever seen on film, which happens during the Jimmy Aja Aja song, where Karan Razdan shows up to scare Mithun with an electric guitar. It's not even plugged in or anything. He's just going ooh, it's the guitar.
Because the guitar killed his mom, and I loved also the special effects when the mom dies, because it's like when Super Mario gets the star on his head and he goes
all the RGB components just disintegrate.
Like the visually also, where we see freeze frame of Mithun and it cracks. I thought that was just amazing. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
He toot gaya insan, just so you're
But
clear.
the audacity to circulate this falseness, that electric guitars can be electrocuted and people can die from it. And I don't know how, probably a generation of aspiring musicians didn't pick up the guitar because, the phobia of what if the electric guitar could give me a shock and I will die out of it.
That's why in O Jane Jana, Salman's guitar is not plugged in. Salman is smart, yaar. He knows about guitar phobia.
And then you have Jimmy. That's why the song is Jimmy, 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 Aja, 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 because Jimmy refuses to Aja.
Yeah, he's
because
negging her.
Jimmy's
He's negging Kim. That's what's happening.
And Jimmy's like, nahi aayega, nahi aayega, nahi aayega, Jimmy.
And then apna time aayega.
And then out of nowhere, Raju Chacha shows up. How did anyone, where did Raju Chacha come from? But
Who found
Raju Chacha shows up.
How
I
did
have
David
no
Brown
idea.
found Raju Chacha?
And then, in a moment, the trauma, from treating trauma with, here, take your guitar. Raju Chacha just throws the guitar at him.
And then we see some amazing acting where Mithun is no, and Raju is you have to sing, and he's yelling, and then Mithun is no, and they're both yelling, and there's this entire audience that's seated for a concert going what?
Yeah.
And this
Did
is
we
by
pay
the
for
way
this?
by the way, the audience just threw stones and shit at Jimmy, who's got a head wound.
It's a very fickle audience.
Yes.
It changes at the drop of a minute.
Yeah.
And then
they've already just heard a banger in Jimmy Jimmy Aja Aja. Paisa vasool usme ho jana chahiye, but they're not happy still. Right? We want Jimmy to sing.
And then Raju's what you need to do is take your mother's Atma and put it in the guitar and play it.
Yeah.
And then Yaad Aa Rahi Hai starts basically, right?
Yes,
Which is also a
yes.
banger. I have to say, we're making fun of
Yeah.
it. It's a really good
Oh,
song.
there is a trivia around it. So Kishore Kumar was supposedly supposed to sing that song, but he was elsewhere. I think he was traveling or something, and the scratch was recorded with Bappi Lahiri singing, so that Kishore Da can hear it. And then Kishore Da heard the track, and he was like, "No, you should keep it. This is going to be a really big hit for you." And the rest is history, as they say.
And then Raju Chacha gets shot.
No. It's not. No.
Oh,
They're
sorry.
trying to shoot Jimmy. Raju Chacha
Yeah.
backflips from the from the high up
End of
balcony
the
to in front of the bullet, and then he dies. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, like Jimmy goes and like fucks shit up at the villain lair, which has a disco ball. in it.
in white bell bottoms and like
What
9-inch
else?
heels.
Excuse me, he's a disco dancer. You might not have heard.
It also reminded me weirdly of in Ram Lakhan, the dance competition with Debu and Anil Kapoor. You know, like, you remember that? Like that was also very disco inspired. No, you don't. Why is Debu such a thing for me? Why has that never left me?
Yeah, exactly. The only thing I remember from Ram Lakhan is, O Ramji. And you were
Yeah.
like, there's another dance competition happening.
Guys, we need to do Ram
How does-
Lakhan.
How does your memory go from Madhuri? Like, go past Madhuri to remember Debu had a dance.
Guys, we need to do Ram Lakhan on the show. Like, can
Yeah, we
somebody like from the Patreon tier recommend we watch Ram Lakhan so we can do it? Like, I would love to.
That's a movie, though.
Anyway, so yes, this is Disco Dancer. Guys, did you enjoy watching Disco Dancer?
I want to just kind of come back to the main villain first of all, because he's like
Om
I didn't
Puri?
remember who the main villain was of the movie, right? And when he starts just beating up, slapping children, wives, devas in the garden, I was like, man, Vardhan is really pissed off that he can't catch Dawn in 11 countries. You know, like, he's just like manhandling kids, like slap around.
It's like, this could be Dawn in his childhood. I'm gonna kill him before he becomes older.
Yeah. And then he gives the kid to the goons, and he's like, "Itni maar, okay?" Like he doesn't like. I was like, "What? You've not done enough."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like really like maybe Goron ki na kalogi, but definitely Amiro ki. You know, like that was hilarious. But that's what I said. I had a lot of points and arguments and cynicism in the first part of the movie, but honestly it just kind of faded away after the song started. And they come in, like it's talking about Jimmy and Yaad Aa Rahi Hai. Those songs are back to back. There's like literally no story
Yeah.
between. Like Rajesh Khanna comes in and he's already playing Goro Ki Na Kalogi on it. Tang, 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 Goro Ki Na Kalogi, here guitar, start singing. And he starts singing straight away. It's like non-stop one after the other. And if there's not a song, there's some song on the background that they're dancing to, that which is an also amazing disco song. So it's really pretty awesome. I don't know, like Bappi Lahiri, was this his biggest? I imagine his biggest hit, but he had been composing before, right? Do you know, Sujoy?
No. I think Namak Halal is probably his biggest hit, no?
I don't know if he
Arguable.
what the kind of like his discography was like. Was he already a big?
Before this?
Was he already like a big producer, or was this kind of what was it?
So Chalte Chalte happened before this, which was a big hit, right? And then there was Suraksha as well, and then obviously I think Jyoti Kalioka Chaman happened before this, but I don't think Kalioka Chaman was like a big hit before it got remixed decades
Oh.
later.
So in 1982, he had Disco Dancer, Namak Halal, Surag, Hatkari. In 83, he had Himmat Wala,
Wow,
which was
Sharab.
huge. And then Naukar Biwi Ka. Then
84 he had
83
Sharabi.
Yeah, 84 he had Sharabi and Kasem Paida Karne Wale Ki.
Again, massive. But basically, he'd already been composing for 10 years before that. Like, this is not like,
Yeah.
he'd been at it for a long, long time. But I have to say, this is an era of movies that isn't known to me. Like, it's not movies that I know really well. And I also think it's an era of movies that isn't critically regarded really well. You know, like when people say cinema in the 80s was shit, like this is the kind of cinema people are usually talking about, right? And a lot of them are Mithun movies, I would say.
Like if somebody is compiling, any of those lists, top 100 Indian movies to see before you die, nobody mentions like Disco Dancer or Himmatwala. It is a integral part, I would say, of the Bollywood that we know now and how it evolved from then, because it has all those remnants, right? It has passed down the whole idea of a dancing superstar that we kind of take for granted now, that a hero has to dance in a way. The genesis of this was Disco Dancer, right? In a lot of ways.
I've had Russian people, Nigerian people, Turkish people, Chinese people that have talked to me about Jimmy Jimmy or like the Disco Dancer songs. Like people that not like they're fans of Bollywood, they just know this song,
Yeah.
It is amazing the impact of this movie. I do find it weird rewatching it that the actress acting with Mithun is so bad. Kim. I don't know any of her work. I think she was in a couple of movies and then kind of didn't do much after that. But she's really terrible, although she's very pretty. And she gets a massive song in Jimmy. Like even the way it's shot, like she's dancing and there's like these flashing background lights and stuff like that. It's like a really cool set. And she got a song for the ages. It's been remade, it's been sampled, it's been adapted. And I don't think we remember even the actress that much anymore, right? Like she's left no mark whatsoever.
She's done a lot of movies, but like mostly in like dancers special appearance kind of roles. I think
she was also Vamp.
Was she in Ye Raat Mein Jo Maza Hai as well?
But none of these, I don't remember her at all. Like there's nothing of her that I remember, it's just an odd thing. But yeah, so did you like rewatching it?
It was an experience for sure. Like I definitely enjoyed watching the songs and stuff, but I think I can now check it off the list. I don't need to rewatch Disco Dancer ever again.
I also think when I started watching it, I was like, okay, I'll start early because I'll watch it in batches, like 20-30 minutes. I ended up watching the whole thing in one go. Like it did kind of like take me in, and I wanted to finish it. I want to watch the songs. So it is a good watch, but is that battle in your brain that you feel you shouldn't be enjoying this? This is trash, but you are enjoying it because it is trash. Like it is like both.
Yeah, exactly. But it is trash, and Mithun. Almost at the peak of his nascent star power, the music. There's so much to pull you in this experience. I really enjoyed it.
I don't know if I agree that it's trash. I think it's very much of its time, and I can definitely see the influences on it from previous Bollywood, movies. For example, like the Nilami wala scene, which again there's like no reason for it to happen, except it's taken from like Trishul, right? Like it's the face off between Amitabh Bachchan and Sanjeev Kumar, and they just wanted that dynamic for no good reason. So there's
10 lakh ka saman 70 lakh mein khareed liya sir.
And
what did he even buy? I don't even know what he bought.
I have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know what did they buy.
We don't know what it is. We're just like Nilami hai, and then it's like 8 lakh, and then like 2 lakh, and then it's like 70 lakh, and I'm like, what is this? What is this thing?
Also, where does Vardhan get his money from? I don't even know. He's rich, but what is he rich from?
Also, like there's so many like different things like that, like mostly taken from Amitabh Bachchan movies from the 70s that you can basically see in this film.
Zabisco taken from
Yes.
Zabisco is in here. Zabisco looks bad.
Amar
Like, he
Akbar
doesn't
Anthony,
look really like in a good space, like physically. He's definitely not been keeping up with the protein shakes, I feel.
But the Bastiwala fight scene is definitely taken from Diwar, like there's like so many different things that are happening. So yeah, like it's a weird mishmash of things, but I think like if it had been stitched together a little bit better. Like if there were like things like transitions, like, just somebody saying something, with, just exposition saying that, oh, like this is what's happening. Even that much. I think this would have been like an actual like movie instead of being like basically a bunch of scenes kept together with a banger soundtrack. But I think as people who watch Bollywood, I understand why a lot of people think this is a good movie, because this is very quintessentially Hindi cinema in a way, because it has like, like when we watch a true blue Hindi cinema, we are waiting for the songs. The songs are not skippable. The songs are not optional. The songs carry forward the narrative. And the songs tell you important things about the characters. And that is what this movie manages to accomplish. So yeah, like Sujoy, like, am I ever going to watch this movie again? No. But am I glad I watched it? Yes, I'm very glad I watched it as an adult, because at least now I know that I will never sing Yaad Aa Rahi Hai in a romantic context.
I will be dancing alone on the streets, though. That I will be doing. Because I'm
Yes.
thinking, whatever you say about David Brown, he's a very talented manager. So if David Brown is around, please send us a link of Khandaan Podcast. We need this kind of representation. Like, it literally catapults people to become stars. I'm all for that.
Last but not the least, the Khandaan connection to this movie is that director B. Subhash also directed Love, 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 which was the second movie of Amir Khan.
Oh, wow. Dance, 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 love, love, love.
Yeah.
A movie we have not covered on Khandaan Podcast yet. So maybe,
It has a song called Disco Dandiya.
Oh, that I know. The song I know.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we all enjoyed it to a certain degree, watching this movie. So that's really cool. I want to thank Lena for being a Patreon and suggesting a movie that we enjoyed. We've got a few other suggestions and a few other movies that people send us that we will be covering next month. But if you do want your movie to get picked, sign up to Patreon and let us know what you want us to cover. And Amrita, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ, and also you can subscribe to our newsletter, the new edition of which should be going out any day now, at khandaan.substack.com. And just subscribing to the newsletter allows you to be considered for giveaways. We'll give you information about meetups, which we're going to have we haven't decided yet, but either the end of June or early July, we're going to have another London meetup. There's all kinds of fun things coming. We have so many ideas right now that we are hoping to bring to fruition over the next month or two. So you want to subscribe to it.
I'm hoping the meetup will be even bigger than the last one. It was so much fun. It would be cool. Sujoy, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at 93K. And you can also follow Khandaan Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Khandaan Podcast.
I'm at Asim Bernie on Twitter. Drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's been a while. I don't think we've had a new review for a while, although all of them are quite positive. So this is always cool. It's my therapy. Whenever I'm feeling bad, I just read all of the Apple Podcast review, and there's so much love there. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back with a new episode soon.
Khandaan Podcast for Epigram.
Girl, you're my chum,